Ask the Expert, brought to you by Auger Hollingsworth.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to Ask the Expert on Your Morning Ottawa. Brenda Hollingsworth is here from Auger Hollingsworth, and today we're discussing a big change to provincial laws that means Premier Doug Ford's government can now rip out nearly 20 bike lanes in Toronto. But what does that mean for cyclists here in Ottawa and across the province? Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I'm so curious from your thoughts. As soon as you saw this news, what was your reaction?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I was a lot more surprised when the initial judge said that he couldn't do it. So the decision of the Court of Appeal was largely anticipated, at least by lawyers. But it does make us think. It seems focused on Toronto at the moment, but it does tell me that it's likely that cities like Ottawa are not going to build more bike lanes. I would think that you would be a little bit reticent to invest in bike lanes when there's a risk that the provincial government could just rip them out. So I think apart from NCC bike lanes, which of course would be safe because they're federal, we should probably not expect more bike lanes on our downtown streets. I think that's a starting point.
And I think so too, because, you know, likely it's going to follow suit when you take a look at what's happening in the GTA and then potentially coming here to the nation's capital. If you start thinking about that at this point moving forward, how can cyclists remain to be as safe as possible here in the area?
Yeah, you've basically got to adopt practices that where vehicles and bikes can coexist in the same traffic lanes, because I think that's what's going to happen in the future. And so we've got the most basic law that I think has fundamentally improved the safety of cyclists and that most people are aware of, but some aren't, is that meter rule. That if you are driving beside a cyclist, you need to make sure that there's at least a meter between your vehicle and the cyclist. So if you're side by side, and that includes your mirror, right? It's not a meter from the door, it's a meter from the side mirror, so that there is enough space so that the cyclist can safely ride beside you if you are side by side. And one place where we see a lot of accidents is, you know, everybody's going along with that meter, and then the cyclist needs to make a detour, often because of a sewer grate or something like that, you know, is not safe for them. So they will edge out from the curb if they're the type of cyclist who likes to ride along the curb, and the driver's not looking at the sewer grate, doesn't realize, and they end up often hitting the cyclist with their passenger side mirror. So you've got to be aware of the challenges that cyclists face, even if you're not one, that, you know, sometimes they have to change their positions and you need to be ready to accommodate them if you're a motorist.
For most of what you see in your line of business, are you seeing that the cyclists are at fault or the drivers, or kind of a mix?
Well, cyclists who are at fault are less likely to call me. Right. But generally speaking, I'm finding the cases where cyclists are injured, they're not at fault. Like most of the cyclists that I represent are either children or people who are regular cyclists. Often they have mirrors, they've got helmets, they've got safety, lights, all of the things you expect them to have. And they are going about their business, and it's a driver who's made a mistake. Like a very common one is also the cyclist who is going straight, has the right of way at, say, a traffic light. Motorist is coming up beside the cyclist, maybe not paying attention to the cyclist, and is going to turn right. Cyclist is going straight, driver's turning right, cyclist gets hit. That's the driver's fault. Right. Always the driver's fault. And a lot of drivers are surprised by that. You know, like, well, I'm turning right, I should be able to just go. I can even do a right on red. Why do I have to watch for a cyclist? You do, right? The onus is on the motorist, always. So that's something we see a lot. Such
an important conversation, and I feel like, you know, we've been having it for so long, but we need to keep reminding people.
We have to keep reminding.
Ask the Expert, brought to you by Auger Hollingsworth.
Welcome back, everybody. We got Brenda Hollingsworth here joining us this morning. We're talking about bike safety, as in Toronto, Doug Ford has released a plan where they're ripping out 20 bike lanes in Toronto. What could that mean for areas right here in the nation's capital? And I guess one of the questions I want to ask you is, if you do see that trickle-down effect and we start to see some reductions here in Ottawa, what would be your sight moving forward on the amount of collisions that might occur moving forward?
Yeah, I think it'll increase. And one of the interesting things about this court decision is that there was no debate on either side that bike lanes save lives, that bike lanes are safer for cyclists. So that was a non-negotiable. Everybody agrees. The court said that didn't matter. The politicians could still do whatever they want, and it's up for the voters to decide if they like that or not. So, you know, if you have a choice to go in a bike lane, exercise that choice. You will always be safer in a bike lane. You know, not 100% safe. You still have to, you know, there's still intersections and all of that. But when you have that option, use it. But otherwise, yes, we're going to see more, we're going to see an increased number of accidents as cyclists and motorists are forced to share the road on busy commuter roads.
You know, unfortunately, you see it all the time. You know, you're on both sides, where you see it from the driver's side, and you see it from the cyclist side. I want to walk through a scenario. Let's say you're a cyclist. We'll start, and the cyclist gets hit. What is the first thing and a few steps following that we should do in an accident like that?
Yeah, so I've said this before. Cyclists are very reluctant to call the police, and I never really understand that. I guess there's a lot of adrenaline that comes into you when you're hit as a cyclist, and so your number one instinct is, I got to get off the road, which is a good instinct. And you know, if you need immediate emergent medical help, of course you've got to attend to that. But you also should phone the police. Like, you are not a target for motorists, and motorists are required to look out for your safety. There is a reverse onus on motorists in Ontario not to hit pedestrians or cyclists. So you should phone the police, and you should have the police document what happened. Because later on, I have seen it, motorists will try to blame the cyclist, and you know, maybe you have sometimes we have cyclists with cameras, but most don't have sort of dash cam equivalents.
Right.
And then it's your word against their word, and then maybe you have to take a compromise because we don't know who's going to win on the credibility battle. So I would say calling the police is your best bet. Getting names of witnesses, if you can do that, is also huge. If you are a witness, reach out to that cyclist. It is actually hard to ask someone to put their name in your phone. So if you saw the accident, offer your name. That would really, really help.
And you know, speaking from the driver's side, I'm sure you see this all the time. The reflection after, let's say, the driver caused the accident. What would be your message to drivers out there just to be extra cautious when cyclists or just paying attention to the roads in general?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of regret. I've seen a lot of people feel very, very badly in their own lives altered by the fact that they've hit people, pedestrians or cyclists. You know, all of the things they could have done differently. The sun was in my eyes. I take this route all the time. I was on autopilot. Less likely to admit that they were on their phone, but let's face it, we know. We know. And so it's not worth it. That extra few seconds you gain by not being careful, never going to be worth it.
Yeah, and that's not what we want to do. Again, the conversation that I'm sure Brenda will be having for so long to come as bike lanes get reduced in Toronto, maybe impacting us here in Ottawa. Always appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
If you want to reach out to Brenda or the whole Auger Hollingsworth team, there's all the information there, 613-233-4529, and the rest of the information continues on.